Now we've covered random sampling, I'm now going to cover some sampling that involves aspects of non-random sampling as well. You need to know quite a few of these. Flashcards are absolutely key, because if not, you're gonna think about them, then completely forget them straight away. Okay, it's quite a lot of details going to come up in this lesson, so be prepared to pause and get ready for notes. Okay, it's not very many slides, just a lot of detail. Right, let's just have a brief overview of all the sampling methods that you need to know about at GCSE level. Now, we can put them into three groups to start with. The completely random one, which is the one that we've just spoken about, that's been covered. The simple random sampling, those 3-mark questions where you need those 4 points. So number your population, random number generator, ignore duplicates, and assign the number back to the person in the population. That's completely random. Right, then there's some sampling that involves some random, stratified, systematic and cluster. Stratified, what I'm going to do is a whole different section. And then there's the non-random, so the quota, the opportunity and the judgment sampling. Okay, so we're going to go through those. So why do we need anything else? Because you might be thinking, hang on, random sampling is absolutely perfect. Every person in the population has an equal chance. It's representative of every member of the population, as they've got an equal chance of being chosen, and it's unbiased, right, or more unbiased. So you might think that's great. However, it is expensive, it's time consuming, and it can be difficult to carry out. Okay, sometimes random sampling is basically more convenient. It's quicker, it's easier. So we're going to look into some aspects of why that's carried out. As I've said, these are all the different ones that you kind of need. So I'm going to just change that to an A. Judgment, opportunity, quota, systematic and cluster. As I said, I will cover stratified sampling, but in a different section. Okay. Right, to decide which sampling method is suitable, as we're going through these, you need to think whether the sample is going to be biased, the sample size will be suitable, how quick and easy the method is, and how expensive it is going to be to carry it out. And this is what someone who's designing an experiment is going to have to be thinking about all the time. Okay. So let's start with judgment sampling. And judgment sampling is when someone basically uses their judgment to try and select a sample that's representative of the population, that's random. So a shopkeeper wants to know what people would be prepared to pay for a new range of products they have in their shop. She stands in the centre of town and chooses 5 people to interview who she thinks is going to give a range of views. So when we're thinking about that, she might pick an older person, she might pick a younger person, she might make sure that they've picked male and female. They're trying to be as representative as possible. So you're using your judgment to try and select a sample that is representative of everybody's views. Okay. That's judgment sampling. Get that one written down. Opportunity sampling, also called convenience sampling, okay, by some exam boards. You might see it as opportunity or convenience. So use the people or objects that are around you at the time. Mrs. Buckle wants to know how much TV on average students watch after school. She asks her form, okay, so this is me asking the people around me at the time, okay, because it's convenient to. Right, I had spare time during form, I'm just going to ask those students, okay, because it's convenient and I'm going to take the opportunity to do so. Let's think about opportunity and opportunity sampling. Advantages, if we write A for advantage, it is quick, isn't it? It's cheap and it's easy. Big disadvantage though, it is not random, okay, not being collected fairly. And it is not going to, and so it doesn't represent the population, so not being collected fairly. So we can't say it doesn't represent the population. How do we know that? We need to be better by saying it may not represent the population. Be really careful, and that mark schemes are specific about that. You can't say it doesn't represent the population. Say it may not represent the population. And every member of the population has not been given an equal chance to be selected. Okay, so quick, cheap, easy, you know, and not random. And in fact, let's just do some advantages and disadvantages of this judgment sampling as well. The advantages are pretty much the same as they were for the other one. I mean, if we think about it, advantages, it's quick, it's cheap, it's easy. Okay, that's why you would do it. A disadvantage, the quality of the sample is going to be dependent on the person selecting the sample. The researcher may be biased and unreliable in the sample they select. For example, if you're someone that's shy and not confident, there's much more chance of you probably selecting younger people closer to your age group, maybe the same gender as yourself, etc. You wouldn't necessarily consider someone who walks past you who's looking a little bit aggressive, for example. So therefore, not everyone has an equal chance of being chosen, and so that may be biased and unreliable, okay? And it completely depends on the person. So that's the one for judgment. Get those notes down, please. So that's judgment, opportunity sampling or convenience. Next, we move on to cluster sampling. So cluster is when data naturally splits into groups. So it could be form groups. For example, it's naturally forms into a group. It may also be for towns of a country. Okay, they're natural groups, or counties, natural groups. The list of form groups is the sampling frame, and some clusters are randomly selected to make the sample. So imagine these are different form groups, say different clusters of students. You would just select 2 form groups, okay, out of 5 in this instance. So Laura is researching the cost of mortgages in London. She randomly selects 2 boroughs of London and sends out questionnaires to everyone within those chosen boroughs, okay? Advantage then. So it's economically efficient to carry out anything that way. Less resources are required. It's going to take a lot less effort to carry it out. And it can be representative. And this is very dependent on how many small clusters are sampled, okay? So can be representative if lots of small clusters are sampled. Okay, disadvantage though. Clusters might not be representative at all. If, for example, imagine you're only selecting 1 cluster out of 10, it's going to be less chance of it being representative. So disadvantage, clusters may not, we don't know for sure, be representative of the population and may lead, don't say it definitely leads, may lead to a biased sample. Okay. So that's cluster sampling. On to the next one is systematic sampling. I love systematic sampling. It follows a system, okay? We're choosing items at regular intervals. Tends to be one that's quite forgotten, this one, but I think of it as a system. Regular intervals, okay? So say you have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people. Okay, we've got 15 people and we want a sample of 5 people. So you have 15 people like above and we want a sample of 5 people. What we do is we do 15 divided by 5, which is 3, which means we need to choose every 3rd person. To get our sample of 15, we need to choose every 3rd person. So what you do is you randomly select the first person between 1 and 3. So you might put the numbers 1, 2, 3 in a hat and randomly choose. This person here was the 2nd person, that was the person chosen, and then they jump every 3rd person to create your sample, okay? So it follows the list every 3rd person. So it's always your total number of people divided by your sample size to decide how often you're jumping it. So for this one, Katie has a numbered list of 100 year 10 students. So she's got 100 students. She needs to get a sample of 20. So that means she's going to have to ask every 5th student, every 5th student, okay? Fifth person, she needs to get a sample of 20. She therefore randomly chooses her first student between 0 and 5 and then asks every fifth student. So you'd randomly generate, for example, a number. Say you come up with 4. You would then all ask the 4th and you'd jump then to the 9th person. You'd then jump to the 14th person all the way to the end, and that would give you your 20 students. So that's systematic sampling. Okay, let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of systematic sampling. So advantage is that population is evenly sampled. Population is evenly sampled, and the sample is easy, relatively easy to select. Okay. Disadvantage, not strictly, it's got some aspects of random sampling, but it's not strictly a random sample, as some members of the population cannot be chosen. Okay, so it's not completely random, but it's more random, for example, than convenience sampling. Okay, finally then, we have quota sampling. Now, quota sampling, very similar to cluster sampling, but it's where the population is grouped into characteristics such as age, gender, but then you just interview or question a few from each group. Say, for example, 10 males over 25 and 15 males aged between 25 and 60, for etc. So you're trying to select an amount, select a quota from each group, okay? And you obtain the sample by finding members of each group until the quota is reached. So say, so that would be a sample of 25, but then you'd just keep going in the different groups till you had the full amount. So advantages here: quick to use, cheap, disadvantage is once again not random. It is biased, as the interviewer is choosing who will be in the sample. So not every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. What is nice about it though is that it gives kind of an opportunity to get somebody from each group, okay? Whereas with your basic simple random sampling, it could be the situation that you haven't got any males over 25, but if you are being, you know, you're making sure that you're selecting people from different groups, from different areas, you know, then it does create a situation where you're getting people from across the board, people from different groups, okay? Right, the only last one that I need to cover with you is stratified sampling. That is going to be in a completely separate video.